Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us today.
جميعا وشكرا لكم للانضمام إلينا.
Okay. So good evening and welcome everybody. مساء الخير جميعا. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar, Science Engagement Challenges.
مرحبا بكم اليوم في Falling Walls ENGAGEx Cairo.
My name is Mohamed Dawood, and I'm the Science Communication and Development Officer at the American University in Cairo. We're a group of science communicators and engagers to deliver science engagement activities.
So good evening and welcome everybody.
Orphans, minorities,
thank you for joining us today for today's webinar, Science Engagement Challenges.
اليوم في Falling Walls ENGAGEx Cairo.
I'm beyond thrilled to be the moderator for today's high-level panel organized with the support of Falling Walls Foundation as part of their ENGAGEx series of events. I'm honored to be joined by our diverse and esteemed panelists who are leaders in the science communication and engagement field, addressing the current challenges and opportunities in the field in the MENA region. We will have two sessions today. The first session addressing the role of scientists in engaging the public, and the second one will address the role of science practitioners in engaging the public. And in between, as a special highlight, please join us for a family science show demonstrated by the Fun Life team. It's called The Wonders of Science Show. It is my utmost pleasure to greet and welcome to our first panel discussion, Dr. Islam Hussein, a senior scientist at Makerspace and the founder of the Viral blog. Welcome, Dr. Islam.
مرحبا بك دكتور إسلام.
Thank you, Dr. Islam, for joining us today. And,
على انضمامك اليوم.
And we also have more to mention. Dr. Rana Dijani, the president of the Society of the Advancement of Science and Technology, full-time professor at the Hashemite University.
وأستاذ بالإيه بالجامعة الهاشمية في الأردن. مرحبا بك دكتور رنا.
Thank you very much. أهلا وسهلا بالجميع.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And finally, we have Dr. Jawad Al-Kharaz for our first session today, who is the head of research, Middle East Desalination Research Center. Welcome, Dr. Jawad.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. And I would love also to greet and welcome our audience joining us from all around the world. Invite our audience to join us in the YouTube chat and the Zoom chat as well, as we would love to know from where are you joining us today. I also invite our audience to leave in the chat questions for our speakers, and please type whatever question you have in the question box in the Zoom or in YouTube chat. And you can expect each speaker to have the floor for about 10 minutes. And we will try to get as many of the questions during our Q&A session. I'm excited to kickstart our panel discussion today. So now, without further ado, my pleasure to kickstart our first panel discussion by introducing Dr. Islam Hussein, who is a virologist, a drug discovery researcher. Currently, he's working as a senior scientist at the Makerspace, which is a biopharmaceutical company. And he's also the founder of the Viral blog, which is a YouTube channel communicating the science of virology to the general public. He was listed by Nature Middle East as one of the top 6 science communicators. So I'm beyond thrilled, honored to welcome Dr. Islam to speak about 10 minutes to hear about his insights about science engagement, the challenges and opportunities in the Middle East.
والآن الكلمة مع الدكتور إسلام. تفضل.
Dr. Islam, you are muted.
دكتور إسلام يرجى فتح الصوت.
Once again, thanks very much for the introduction, and thanks very much for the kind invitation. It is an honor to be with you today. And let me start by saying that I was a typical classical scientist
عالما تقليديا
until like 2014. All of my time was focused on doing research in the lab and applying for grants, publishing papers, and so on. The interpreter is interfering with, I just can't focus when I can hear both my voice and the interpreter. Is there any way to fix that?
Can ask our interpreter to choose only the channel for attendees, not to the panelists, please. Thank you very much.
Am I good to go now?
I think so. Let's try.
Okay. Right. So until 2014, I did all what scientists do. It's still interfering. I just can't.
Can we ask our interpreter, please? Can you change to a separate channel? Thank you very much. Is it working now?
Let's give it a shot. Okay. Looks like it's okay now. All right. So until 2014, I was writing grants, publishing papers, working in the lab full time, until something happened that enlightened me, or like it was a revelation for me, that I suddenly realized that scientists should be doing more than that. When you face a big claim based on pseudoscience, and you have an entire country engaged with someone who's telling lies days and night, and you're a scientist and you have no connection to the media, and you have no skills of talking to the public, and when you think about it, who's going to listen to me? You're frustrated and you're angry, and you want to tell the truth, and you want to explain some complicated science to people. So that was the trigger. Okay, I realized that I should be doing more, but I didn't know actually how to do it. So my first encounter with the public was through a very simple YouTube video where I tried to communicate something related to a very important issue that was capturing the attention of the Egyptian public. And then I didn't expect that people will react positively to it. I didn't expect that anyone will even watch it. But all of a sudden, it seemed like I was hitting at the right wavelength where the public can understand what I say. And my video went viral, and all of a sudden I was under the spotlight, and all of a sudden I was in the middle of a battle, okay? And I had to learn how to balance my work and my hobby, which eventually became my hobby, is to communicate science to the public. And I had to learn how to deal with negative reactions from the public. Usually when you talk about something that's politically heated, usually the public is not usually nice. You can get some thank you notes and you can get some insults at the same time. So from this time onwards, I started thinking about, okay, how can I make this bigger? How can I do more? And to be honest with you, I had no skills more than or beyond preparing a nice PowerPoint presentation and speaking at a conference to virologists like me. So I need to find some sort of a medium that would allow me to talk to other people from all sorts of disciplines, and people, especially from the public, general public, people who maybe don't have deep expertise with science. So I had the pleasure of giving a talk in Cairo in 2015. It was a TEDx Cairo event. And I had a very short presentation about viruses. I love my work. I love the branch of science that I'm specialized in, and I'm very passionate about it. And I think that was the main driver for me to go out and speak about what I know and what I think people should know. So after this event, it was a public event. It was like more than 1,500 people in the same lecture room. And there was a very good feedback from the majority of young audience sitting in the room. And on the way back from Cairo back to Boston, I took a decision, myself and my son actually, who's now a high schooler. He was much younger back then. And we decided to start a YouTube channel. I had no technical background in making videos, and it was all through a self-learning experience. He was interested in the technical side of things, and I was more interested in creating the content, preparing the scripts and so on. And we started in our basement, and we didn't have a very nice basement. A basement is a place where you have a washing machine and dryer and so on. So we started piecing together a very, very simple studio based on stuff that we ordered from Amazon. We had no experience with audio and video editing and all the other parts of video production, all the major things that go into making a short video. And with time, we've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot on the technical side and on the skill of communicating to the public and listening to how people receive these complicated topics, and learning from the feedback and trying to improve how you deliver the subject to people. To cut a long story short, I've been doing this for maybe 5 or 6 years. And now I'm becoming an advocate for my colleagues who are interested in communicating to the public. And the main message that I'm trying to give them is that you don't need to be a professional, okay? You don't need to produce an Oscars type of quality videos, okay? You just need to be yourself, and you need to learn very few things, and then it develops with time. And the reason is we need more scientists communicating to the public, okay? In the Middle East, we have some really, really good science journalists, but they're very, very few. And it was obvious when the pandemic started that we needed a credible source of daily information to people. I'm sure you've all witnessed the info pandemic that we've been through, and maybe it's still running until today. Every day we're getting misinformation from everywhere, media, WhatsApp, social media platform, and so on. And if scientists don't step up and lead and have their voice heard by the general public, there will be others who will fill in the gap. Okay, and I'm sure that those others may not have the same expertise and may not deliver the right information to the general public. So I took this as a mission. It eats a lot of my time. It's not easy. It takes a lot of time and effort to think about something and process it in a way that's accessible to someone who maybe doesn't have much experience in this subject. And with the pandemic, I think it became very obvious how important this to us. If we don't do it, others will, okay? And I felt like, you can be frustrated about something and you can spend a lot of time writing a Facebook post, or you can quench this anger somewhere else. I feel like the best way to use your time is to put what you want to say in an accessible way to, and of course, available freely to the general public. It's going to be a much better use of your time. You can start with a cell phone camera. And right now we have, the newer cell phones, they're very good at capturing good quality videos. If you want to step up a little bit, you can start tinkering with cameras, you can start tinkering with audio, and you can ask around. You can take some advice from people who maybe went through the same experience. And I can tell you that when I started 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I was, I had absolutely zero experience, nothing. I knew nothing about how to make a video. And I was getting a lot of input and feedback from YouTubers who gave me a lot of advice, and I tried to learn as much as I can from them and try to put this into my my videos. We need people in all sorts of disciplines. We need people to teach us about space science. We need people to teach us about physics. We need humanities. We need every single discipline, because right now there are no boundaries between science. We all complement each other's. And the public, I can tell you, is hungry for knowledge. And if they find it, they will consume it. And maybe you're not going to be hitting millions of views. The type of content that we make is not entertaining enough. It's not the kind of content that usually goes viral. But I've also learned that the impact of your work should not be measured by the number of views. It's very hard to measure the impact of science communication to the general public. And if you're going to be disheartened or disappointed when your video is watched by 10,000 people and you were hoping that hundreds of thousands will watch it, then you're not going to carry on. It's a marathon. You need to be patient, and you need also to know that it's going to be pretty much you. I do everything by myself. I have a team that's composed of 2 people, Adham, my son, and myself, and he's getting busier with his school. That's it. There's no support in the Middle East for people who communicate science to the general public. It might be better if you can cooperate or collaborate with somebody else who can take the content from you and make it better. Someone who's maybe that's his daily job, because I admit, no matter what I do, I will never be able to compete with people who that's what they know, that's their profession. But it's going to be you. There will be very, very low financial support. I do I support everything I do out of my pocket. So it's not an easy job, but I can tell you when I hear a comment from someone saying that I liked the science of microbiology or I loved the science of virology because of your videos, then I forget everything. It's just all of us. It's like suddenly, I'm the happiest person on earth, and I never think about everything that goes into a video and all the effort that I spent over the past few years. I can tell you also that now we need more people to communicate properly to the general public about COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, this is a very pressing issue these days, and people are getting all sorts of bad information from everywhere. And I can also tell you that I witnessed the effect of what we do. You can use all sorts of social platforms. You can use Twitter, you can use Facebook, make some videos on YouTube. Now we have a new app called Clubhouse. Do whatever you can to reach as many people as possible, and try to be yourself, try to be human, and learn how to deal with negative responses from people. People are angry behind the keyboard usually, but we're all humans, and we have to learn how to put up with these things and try to deliver the message to the people. How about the time right now? Am I?
We are running a little bit over time.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think that's all what I wanted to say, and I'll probably be able to answer questions later on.
That is great. Thank you very much, Dr. Sam, for your insightful talk. That was really, really cool what you do for us right now, especially with the current situation with COVID-19 and all of this infodemic and misconceptions and pseudoscience all over the places. And it is really good message that you conveyed during your talk, that we need all people from all disciplines, from physics, biology, from medicine, and from sociology, and from humanitarians, and from policymakers and everywhere, to actually stand together to fight this kind of epidemic and to stand against this current situation of COVID-19, and with all the phobia about vaccination, to get vaccinated and everything. So thank you very much. We're looking forward to the Q&A, and I will get back to you later. But it is time now to go to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Dr. Rana Dijani, the president of the Society for Advancement of Science and Technology in the Arab world. And she is a professor at Hashemite University. She's the founder and director of We Love Reading community-based model to changing mindset through reading and women of influence in the Arab world in 2021 Arabian Business Magazine's list. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Rana Dijani. You have the floor.
Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel. I'm very excited to hear my colleagues and more even to listen to the questions and attempt together to answer them. So I'm going to start with the Dua. When she invited me to be part of this panel along with her other colleagues, posed 3 questions to me. One is to talk about what is important about my role as a scientist in engaging the public. What are the challenges that I have faced and how I overcome them? And thirdly, what are the opportunities in the MENA region? So I'm going to start with that as an outline of what I'm going to share with you in these very short 10 minutes. First of all, when I ask why is my role important, I first have to ask, what is my role? Who am I? And I want to frame it, and as I always do, in the various scarves that I wear that represent my different roles. So the first one, when I introduce myself, is that I'm a mother. I have 4 children. And to me, that's the first and most important role that I play. Second, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator. And to me, that's the second most important role I can play in any community, because children are half their time are at home and half their time they're at school. So if we're going to influence the future generation and bring up a healthy, responsible humanity, that's where we have to focus our energy and appreciate those who spend their time doing that. Thirdly, I'm a scientist. And I'll talk about that later, but science is what what really gives me that roller coaster feeling of trying to understand and discover how molecules talk to each other, how cells communicate, and how that all manifests in the nature that we see around us. And how by just realizing that the wonder and the awe of that all is what keeps me alive and wakes me up every morning with such optimism and enthusiasm. And that's fundamental to our curiosity. So this is who I am as a person. And fourthly, it's I employ the knowledge and experience and expertise that I have from my science to serve my community. And hence the We Love Reading program. How do I develop programs that really make a difference in the mindsets of children who grow up to be change makers? And lastly, I, as a role of my 5th role, is defending and fighting for justice for those who are oppressed, starting with half the population, which are women, to make sure that they have their basic rights and they have a voice and they have the freedom to choose who they are. So from this description of who I am and what are the roles I play, I will talk about the importance that I see in engaging with the public, using my example as an example, and not because I'm unique or I'm the only one. There are thousands of scientists like me, women, and I'm a Muslim as well, because that's an issue that is also always brought up. So I just represent their voices, not that I'm any better or worse than them. And we need to increase those voices. And so these are the roles that I play to engage in the public, and why it's important to engage with the public because of the specificity of these roles. And as I describe my roles, I hope that represents not just that I'm a female Muslim scientist, but also that how I arrange my priorities when I describe myself. And this is very important for the general public, so that everybody's important and everybody's unique. So highlighting the parent role is very, very important, and not to brush it aside. Second, to highlight the diversity of roles I play. which also is an important message to the public, to engage people that you can be anything you want. You don't have to be stuck in a particular career or a particular job if you don't find yourself in that job. You should always pursue your passion and find out what you're curious about so that you do better at your job. And it actually is not a job anymore. It's something you enjoy. And lastly, by sharing my different roles, showing that nothing is impossible, and to have the freedom to dream, to be what you want to be, but to forge that with your own hand, by trusting yourself, trusting your gut feeling, and going forward. And therefore, from this premise of who I am and how I engage with the public, so communication. It's all about communication, as Dr. Islam before me, when he talked about his story and how he started to engage with the population. I think, first of all, it's a talent, right? It's a talent about engaging with the public. And because I love teaching, and I think that's part of that talent, is that you can simplify things to make them easily digestible for the general population. And by the way, this shouldn't be any specific. Any good scientist should be able to explain their science to a 5-year-old or a 90-year-old person. Because if it's not clear to them, then it's not clear to you, right? So simplifying is key to any good scientist who has a good scientific discovery or study or research. And then it's about practice, right? Writing about that science in simple words. Again, as a community, we're not used to writing. We're only used to writing scientific journals, but even then we're not, especially those coming from the Arab world, they're not practiced through writing. So writing is always a difficult hurdle. So practicing writing, not just science, but writing for the general public is very important. And you get better. You're not going to be born writing, top notch. And then it's about language. How to use language, not just as a style, but also as a language, being fluent in English if you're going to write in English for the general public, or being fluent in Arabic and writing in Arabic and knowing the jargon and the terms to engage the Arabic population so that they can understand what you're talking about, and not just write in English and then you lost half the population. And then to tie what you're writing as you write and communicate science with reality around people, not just talk hypothetically, but talk about real things that are happening, like COVID-19, how science it forms the base for us dealing with COVID-19, whether it's in development of the vaccine or in therapies or best practices and so on and so forth. So tying it to reality and not just talking hypothetically. And what leads from that, when we talk about tying to reality, is really engaging with the general public and talking about issues that are sometimes taboo. And I'm going to start with simple things like when I invoke religion, saying in Islam, we have to wash our hands. And this, by the way, is a very good practice in science, and not shying away. It's like, oh, I'm not going to mention religion as a good scientific, as a good scientific practice. No, if there's something good, we do it. And if it's something bad, we call it out. And that's our role as scientists. And the other taboo thing that I always highlight is, for example, the framework of how the general Arab Muslim population looks at particular issues in science, such as evolution. Evolution has its own consideration, has been tied to, as a myth, from my point of view, has been associated with atheism, has been associated with many other negative things, when unfortunately the scientific theory itself has nothing to do with all those connotations, but people take advantage of science to do and drive their own agenda. So whether it's pushing for atheism, people use evolution, or pushing for imperialism and colonization, people use evolution, or for racism and social injustice, people use evolution. And we see this happening all the time. So I see my role in communication is highlighting what is evolution, what is that scientific theory, so people know the truth and distinguish it from the myth. But more importantly, it's about understanding how come we arrived to thinking that evolution is a myth. And to me, this is a symptom of a much deeper problem, which I want to convey through my communication, that the framework and the mindset of the Arab Muslim community around the world, which is, by the way, 1.7 billion people, which is a lot, and they're not present in Muslim majority countries. They're present actually in other non-Muslim majority countries and in every occupation. So this is very, very important in every sector, to highlight this framework, this mindset, that religion is not about not asking questions. actually the fundamental thing about Islam is being curious, asking questions, following your curiosity wherever it takes you, and backing it up with hardcore evidence. To me, this is the framework that we should approach anything around us, and more importantly, science. And so when I communicate with the public about evolution, I communicate to change that framework and that mindset, and to foster that love of learning, that curiosity, to drive us. If something we encounter we don't like, to start thinking of, okay, if I feel uncomfortable with this, or I find that it doesn't agree with my beliefs or what I understand, this should be a driver to explore more, to ask more questions, and to take responsibility to go become that scientist to discover something new. And this leads me to what are the opportunities then in the MENA region that I see today. There's a lot. I'm an optimist. My husband says I see an ocean in a drop of water. And I see, yes, there are high rates of unemployment, but that means I have a lot, people, especially youth, have a lot of time on their hands. I see there's high education. So these unemployed youth who have a lot of time on their hand are very educated. I see an increase in technology and access to technology, which also gives an opportunity for these educated youth who have a lot of time to do something online that doesn't cost a lot of money, that doesn't require traveling. And we see this with COVID-19. So there's a lot of opportunity to harness and use that volunteering capacity of our youth across the MENA region and across the world to foster in them the feeling of responsibility to go make a difference. And that's what I, let's say, showcase through my different social entrepreneurship programs. And there are networks of social entrepreneurs around the world that young people can engage with such as Catalyst 2030. And such as the organization I run, the Society for Advancement of Science and Technology, that's looking for volunteers who can help us raise awareness about science in the Arab world. And I'm going to end with how our science will lead us as a role to change policy, which Dr. Jawad is going to maybe talk about more. But as we do science, we realize that we are maybe overstepping some ethical guidelines, such as stem cells. And that's what led me to be part of stem cell policy creation in Jordan and in the Arab world. And so I will end here by saying that every person is unique and is special with their DNA, and therefore they have something to give to the world. So to identify something that matters to them, go out and create a solution, trust their gut feeling, dream big, and imagine. And if you can imagine it, it's possible. Nothing is impossible. And that's the butterfly effect, that if a butterfly waves its wings in one part of the world, there will be a change in time and space beyond that we can imagine. And that's why everybody counts and your voice counts. And you need to write your story so that we can see more and more of these role models, because I'm sure there's thousands of people who are doing good work that we don't know about. So you have to write. And as Dr. Islam said, if we don't write, someone else is going to write. So I've written my story, the 5 scarves, and I'll put all these links in the chat so people can follow up, and please engage with us, ask us, and connect with us, because we are all inspired by each other to make a difference in this world. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Rana, for your insightful talk. That was really, really inspiring, being a scientist, a mother, and a Muslim as well, facing all of this discrimination and sometimes that we face in the Middle East, and all of these that we face right now with evolution and all these that we see in the media with all of this, the cover up, all of this, not everyone who wants to talk about evolution, everything. So thank you very much. And with the message that you left us with, that everyone is unique in his DNA and everyone can do the impossible. So everything was impossible until someone did it in the first place. So thank you very much for your talk. I'm really looking forward to the Q&A session so I'm gonna go back to you later. So it's time now to move to the next speaker, Dr. Jawad Al-Kharaz. And Dr. Jawad Al-Kharaz is, as I introduced him earlier, he's the head of research, Middle East Desalination Research Center, and he is also the co-founder and the Secretary General of Arab World Association of Young Scientists. Dr. Kharaz is launching and managing several research projects with focus on environmental challenges in Oman and the GCC MENA region. So I'm looking forward to hear your insightful talk. So the floor is yours, Dr. Jawad.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. It's difficult really to to say much after the insightful talks of my friends, Dr. Islam and Dr. Rana. But I will still try to talk some other aspects. I want to just correct my affiliation. I mean, I have been the head of research at the Middle East Installation Research in Oman the last 5 years, but I left in December. So now I'm back to France, where I head a new organization dealing with water, energy, and climate issues. So as we know, communicating science outside the lab is very important. I mean, there is hardly a single societal issue or any policy decision which doesn't involve science in a way or another, from the design of vaccines or transitioning to green economy, tackling climate change or food security. I remember when I was doing my PhD at the University of Valencia in Spain, one day I had a conversation with my supervisor, and I told him that I got a conversation with someone, you know, in the streets, and he told me what I'm doing. I told him that I'm doing a PhD in physics, and he didn't understand actually. He said to me, "Oh, you are going to be doctor. So doctor in which kind of medicine, what kind of cure you are going to invent, etc." So a lot of people doesn't know. I mean, only doctor is who work in a hospital. So he told me, that supervisor, I remember very well what he told me. Jawad, you need hay que saber vender la moto in Spanish, which means you need to know how to sell the motorbike. So in a way, you need to do a good marketing of what you are doing. This doesn't mean that you need to lie or to make what you do bigger than what is really, but just you need to make or put or to find the link between what you do and solving problems of people, between what you do and what people really understand. So this is here when we see how is the role of science should be in a way to engage with public, explaining in a very understandable way what we are doing and what kind of added value we provide. So the reasons for why public engagement is important are many and consist mostly of a need to share our research, our science among a wider community in order to inform, educate, enthuse, inspire, and prove also to, especially in developed countries, to the taxpayers that what they pay for the research is wisely invested, is not a waste of money. Because a lot of people sometimes, say, why you are spending money, why NASA are spending money in discovering other planets, etc. So scientists, whether we like or not, have a responsibility to shout about our research, and not just in the echo chambers of Twitter or science conferences or some very particular journals. As scientists, we have a responsibility to disseminate our research to a wider audience, considering especially that many research institutes are funded, as I said, by those people. So public engagement with research can help ensure a level of accountability to the public and help make the case for continued funding and support. Further, engaging the public with current research can help inspire the next generation of scientists. So engagement definitely can play a key role in helping to break down stereotypes such as what scientists look like, and only certain people do science, which recently will help increase diversity within the scientific workforce, and an outcome that is really good for all. So scientists must communicate about science with public audiences to promote an understanding of very complex issues that we face day by day in our very technologically advanced society. Some scientists may be concerned about social stigma, what we call Sagan effect. So what we call Saganization. What does it mean? After the late Carl Sagan, who was a brilliant communicator, but who was rumored to have been denied membership to the National Academy of Science because he placed too much emphasis on his public career. I even have some experience on that. In the last years with the social networks, with all the what we have, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. A lot of people, not all of us, are very active in social network, and a lot of people are questioning that, are saying that those guys are doing nothing. They are, all the time are present in social network, so probably they don't have much to do. And even sometimes in some job offers, if they see that you are very active, they say this guy maybe is not really that very professional. And this is not really true. That's why, we need to encourage that a scientist and a researcher who can still compete to have a good ENGAGEx or have a good academic record, but at the same time, he can also dedicate some time to provide knowledge to the public. If scientists don't participate in these dialogues, then others, as Dr. Islam said, will fill this void. So despite public engagement being perceived as an important by a lot of scientists, time constraint also, and the importance of publishing peer-reviewed science to institutes and career academics and pursuing getting higher H-indexes mean that public engagement and science communication can often be overlooked. So a lot of people when they ask us, what is the biggest challenge preventing you from public engagement? Often we mention time as the main constraint, so we don't have really much time because we need to publish, we need to prepare proposals to get funding, we need to teach, etc. Another concern is that public engagement isn't as valued as well recognized as publication and grants, unfortunately. So therefore, the efforts invested might not be equally rewarded. So many scientists feel constrained by the day-to-day, as I said, requirement of their job, leaving them with too little time to communicate or even do, deeper research. Scientists who participate in outreach or engage with the public face several challenges, as they often feel isolated, in part because there are few networks for such individuals to connect with each other. In addition, they feel like afraid of losing competitivity vis-a-vis the colleagues who are running in a challenging competition of H-indexes or academic records and only focus on that. But this has changed, I think, in my point of view, in the last 10 or 15 years. Now we have so many scientific networks in the world. I mean, the network that I created with my colleagues Arabois, SASTA, that's my colleague Dr. Rana is leading, GUAA, the Global Young Academy, AGM, TWAS. There are many networks that promote, to be a good scientist, but at the same time, a good communicator and someone who really engaged in the society. So myself, when I was a pure researcher in my PhD period, I had no idea what is happening out of the lab. But when I started working for an international development organization in France, I know that it is a must to engage with the public and the decision makers. I mean, we really want to produce, if we really want to produce an impact or see the impact of our research, we need really to engage in this dialogue. I can give an example. For example, I did my PhD in remote sensing. So I've been trying to develop algorithms to estimate biophysical parameters from satellite data. There are many applications. Some of the applications are related to improve the water use efficiency in agriculture. So it is a must to communicate with the farmers to understand their practices, and then try to help them to use as less as possible of water, because water is scarce in our region. And the same with policymakers. We need to engage with them to show them how our technologies can help them solve out problems of water quantity or water quality, etc. Of course, the same the increase of use of social media and increase of communication have enabled sort of proliferation of the range of methods by which how to engage with the public, like mentioned by Dr. Islam. We have now podcasting, YouTube, Facebook, webinars, clubhousing now, sharing videos, etc. Last year, we organized a very nice activity which we called Arab Science Week. We engaged during 10 days, hundreds of people around the Arab region. However, it requires some thought to choose our method of engagement and to make sure our engagement is effective. So we need to tailor our message or our communication according to the public that we are targeting. One of the first steps is to think of what audience we are trying to reach, as the public is in fact many. So as I said, for example, general public or decision makers or maybe private sector companies. This often involves the digestion of detailed information from scientists to help shape policy by people who don't, have a scientific background. So I will try to finish quickly. So we need to foster an environment in which learning and disseminating scientific concepts is ingrained in our culture, so that population and the people, government can be better informed to make the best choices based on experimentation and science evidence. Hopefully, there is a dedicated and ever-growing community of people who are interested in spreading the word about scientific research in the realm of science communication and public engagement. In the water field, for example, that I work in, we need to engage public because it's one of the things that obviously the world cannot survive without. In our MENA region is one of the poorest regions in the world in terms of water resources. We know about the conflict now, the tension between Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia because of the Renaissance Dam. In such cases, promoting science diplomacy, or in particular water diplomacy, is a must, because it can help solve out the conflicts and engage the public to understand better what are the transboundary water challenges and also to decision makers who can decide based on science evidence that would definitely help in solving out such conflicts and defending also national interests and save people health and life. I will just show some photos of some activities that I've been engaged in. 2 days ago, I saw in Twitter one post of one lady that I have in my Twitter account. She is representing NASA especially in in engaging with the public. So you know how important even for prestigious institutions like NASA to engage with the public. And this is just some photos for some activities where we try to engage with the people in the Arab region to talk about research, about science, about in different conferences and webinars in different countries around the world. I got the chance really as a scientist to travel to more than 50 countries around the world. This is another message that I will finish with, is that scientist shouldn't limit himself or herself in the laboratory and the university. There are so much broad areas where we can work or engage. So we can be in international organizations, we can be in UN agencies, we can be advisor of the government, we can be in private companies, we can be in NGOs, we can be working with the farmers. So it's very broad. So we shouldn't limit ourselves, and we should look at the overall picture of science, which can really lead us to very broad areas. We have been in the World Economic Forum, we have been in Geneva with UN negotiation on the Sendai framework of natural disaster. We have been promoting the status of young scientists in Europe. We have been trying to promote National Academy of Young Science around the world, etc., etc. So just some photos from we have been, for example, here showing Senegalese delegation how desalination could have we can control the environmental impact of desalination technology, etc., etc. So just some examples of some participation in conferences, in the World Science Forum, and in many events around the world where we can engage with public, with decision maker, with private companies, with different kind of targets. The Global Young Academy, I encourage all of you who have PhD, who are PhD holder to apply for it, because it's a nice network where you can engage with so many science around the world, but also you can have the opportunity to do outreach. Personally, I did it in South Africa, in some schools in South Africa, and we have really a very interesting activities that we do in the framework of the Global Young Academy. And finally, Arab Ways, I invite you also to get a look at our group in Facebook, where we share a very important information. And finally, we created 3 weeks ago what we call the Arab Network of Scientific Journalism, which tries also to connect with the media. It's very important that the media help us as scientists communicate better with the public. I think this is also very nice initiative to engage with the public. I would be happy to respond to your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Jawad, for your talk. That was really, really interesting. And actually, you ended with a great message that scientists shouldn't limit themselves to the laboratory, and they try to reach out to the public through different initiatives, NGOs and organizations. Myself, I have attended a lot of your talks area in one of the Arab science journalism and media and science communication events before. And it's always a pleasure hearing your insightful talks and your contributions to society, and especially with the water problems, especially with the problem that happening right now between Egypt and Ethiopia. Thank you very much for your insightful talk. It's time now to invite the rest of the speakers to our spotlight. Dr. Rana Dijani, welcome back. And Dr. Islam Hussein, welcome back to our spotlight. So it's time now for Q&A, and we have some questions here by our audience. So Isam asks for this question here: what are the quality of videos a great concern in the beginning, as I have an idea and I want to start something that could be beneficial, but I'm trapped in this dilemma of being perfectionist. So any helpful tips, Dr. Islam, for that?
Yeah, perfectionism has always been something that I had in my mind and I think about all the time. And it's a double-faced coin. If you spend too much time and effort trying to get everything perfect, you're harming the effort in general. So somehow you need to strike a balance. You have to define your objective, okay? Is the message clear? Do people understand and benefit from what you're presenting to them in your content? If the answer is yes, then everything else is like the icing on the cake. People won't tolerate poor quality audio. People won't tolerate a video that's like made on the go without too much thinking, or without deep thinking about the content. But other than that, as long as the message is clear, people will take it from you. And the thing is, with these efforts, it's a learning curve. Okay, I would ask the person who is thinking or is asking the question, or request the person who's asking the question, is to take a look at my YouTube channel. Take a look at the first few videos and compare them to the latest couple of videos. And you will notice, I guarantee you will notice some improvement. So start somewhere, okay? And step by step, learn your way through, and at some point you're gonna achieve the perfection, or the perfect video that you want. Although nothing is perfect, but it's gonna get better with time. But focus on the message. The content is the king in what you do. Everything else helps, and it's gonna get better with time. Thanks.
Oh, that is a great advice, Doctor. Actually, I'm a perfectionist as well. I've been trying to start my YouTube channel for like 10 years now. I haven't started it just because I'm just looking for the theme music of my YouTube. I just stuck there. So thank you very much for your insightful talk and advice. So the next question I would love to ask Dr. Jana is from an anonymous attendee. He or she asked, from your experience dealing with kids, what are the important elements that makes kids interested in science or STEM field in general? And I think there's another question that, let's make it a double question here, a double layered question. And another one is why there is lack of numbers to female science communicators in the MENA region? If there is any specific challenges that only female face in the MENA area?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. I just want to comment on the earlier question. There's a very well-known saying, I don't know who said it, but perfect is the enemy of the good. Because if you're going to wait to be perfect, you won't be able to do good. So you just have to jump in there and you learn as you go. Not to say that it shouldn't be good quality, but you learn on the run. All right, so for the first question about the children, children are born curious. That's an innate quality. That's how we evolved as a species. That's the curiosity that made us do the discoveries and explore new land, and we have it. We're going to Mars and all that. So the question then is, and science and STEM is part of that curiosity. It's when you observe nature around you and start asking questions. So the concept is not how to get children interested. They're already interested. It's how to stop the adults from blocking their interest and stifling the children. I think that's the problem. And the way to do that is by keeping an open mind and not to feel challenged if a child asks you a question you don't have the answer to, but to be humble enough and vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, let's go explore together. Let's go find the answer together. And I think that's where the problem is. Parents, teachers, educators always think that they have to have all the answers. And we don't. And actually, the more we know that we don't know. And so sharing that with children actually gives them confidence and courage to keep on asking questions as they grow older. So that's how I would answer that question. Plus, never to invoke religion as a reason for not asking a question, because that happens as well. So it's the adults being vulnerable and uncomfortable, but it's also the adults saying, oh, this is a question that's not allowed. No, any question is allowed. And this is part of the mandate of who we are as a culture, as a society. In the Islamic civilization is you can ask any question. There's no red line. Even Abraham asked God, how did he, كيف تحيي الموتى? So that's okay. And that opens a whole breadth of exploration and curiosity that's important. The second question is about lack of numbers of female science communicators. So first of all, the percentages of female scientists, not women in STEM, because women studying STEM is actually much higher than men in the MENA region, much higher. So don't believe that myth that keeps being online and the media that we have less women in STEM in the MENA region. We have 70% women, in STEM in the MENA region. The problem is at the level of a career, let's say, a professor. There, the numbers are less all over the world. So it has nothing to do with the MENA region. Now, concerning the percentages of female professors, let's say, scientists in the MENA region, their percentage of them being science communicators is relatively the same as those of the males. So it's not that female communicators are less, it's just in general, we have less communicators. And the challenges that face female scientists are the same that face male scientists, is that they don't have the time, they're doing their science, they don't understand the importance of this role and realize how they can play a role, and they may not have that talent and they need to hone it, practice, and jump in there regardless and use that. But we have a few. I mean, we haven't mentioned some of the really good female communicators is Alia Kiwan from Germany, who has a fantastic Facebook and that it's all in Arabic to help communicate. We have fantastic science journalists. We have Buthaina, and we have other names of Nadia and other female science journalists in SciDev and Nature Middle East and Scientific American in Arabic and Popular Science in Arabic. So we do have them. But you know what? The problem is we don't talk about them. We need their voice. So I'll stop there and hope to look forward to more questions.
That is really good advice. Actually, I'm a recent father of a 1-month-old kid, and as you said, like, kids are really curious, they're born scientists, and I'm looking forward to this moment to hear my son asking about any taboo questions he would like to ask. Where did we come from? Who created us? And all of these interesting questions. I'm looking forward to hear these questions from him, and I'm preparing my answers right now. I'm doing my research. So thank you for the advice. Thank you for everything. And it's really, really inspiring advice as well. So the next question is going to be for Dr. Jawad, actually. And the anonymous attendee as well is asking about the science communication rule in such political issues, appeal that's happening right now in the Middle East, such as what is happening between Egypt and Ethiopia right now. So there is like something that us as a science communicators or practitioners or scientists or any science communication initiatives can participate in solving this kind of issues. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is the role of science and science communication is very important in such a kind of conflict. We know that transboundary water resources is an issue everywhere in the world. Wherever we have a river or a water body shared by countries, obviously it's a matter of cooperation between those countries to avoid any kind of conflict or tension. There are some success stories that science communication or journalists should talk about. For example, the Senegal Basin or the river basin shared between Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. There is a dam there, and which is producing hydropower. And so those three countries got a deal in which they share not only water resources, but also they share energy. And so there is a deal, they collaborate scientifically, they share data, and there is a really win-win deal between the three countries. So why not we can have similar deal in the river basin, despite the complexity of the problem. But I think it's a matter also of scientists from the Egyptian side. I know that many scientists from Egyptian side at the ministry, at the university, at the research center, they try to engage with the river basin countries. There is a river basin committee where they share data, they try to develop some collaboration, some training, some capacity building activities, some workshop where they gather Ethiopians, Egyptians, Sudanese, and other river basin country scientists. And this kind of science diplomacy work like that. I mean, we promote science cooperation, and so to avoid, to approach countries and to approach decision makers' views and avoid the conflicts. So I think the science communication is very important also, because if we communicate well about the conflicts, showing that there are some success stories that we can follow, and also show some figures, and also don't show a dramatic situation, because yes, it's problematic, but it's not dramatic. Also, we need to have a plan B. We need to also to look at the desalination solution. We need to look at saving water resources that we have. We need to reuse wastewater, etc., etc. At the same time, defending our interests and our national interests by selling to the Ethiopians that we can cooperate in a win-win deal without harming each other.
Well, that is a great, actually, segue of my next question to all the speakers. Because we're running late in time, and we only have 2 minutes to go. So I'm going to ask you a general questions, and please feel free to jump in and answer the question in just like less than a minute. So obviously there is a gap between the scientific community and the public audience. And so I would like to ask all of you, what can we do to breach the gap between scientists and media and the public audience? And when I talk about media, I talk about media with all the things like social media, like the media, like journalism, like science communicators, practitioners, and everything. So how can we breach this gap between scientists and the public audience? So who wants to go first? Dr. Rana, yes.
Yeah, so first of all, it's about consistency and persistence. So yes, people are not going to listen, and yes, they don't trust, but when you keep on sending the same message consistently, persistently, first they don't like it, they fight it, then they say, okay, that's normal, and then they start embracing it. That's how change happens. So persistence, consistent, and keep on doing it and never give up.
That is really good advice. Thank you very much. Dr. Islam, yes, you want to add something?
Yes, academic institutions can also help by introducing some sort of a reward system for scientists who communicate. I think Dr. Gawad has touched upon this when he said, your colleagues may look at you as you're wasting your time. Your head of department may underestimate the value of what you're doing. It can hurt your promotions. It can hurt your career, okay? So I feel like this needs to change. We need to find some sort of a method of linking what you do to your career. Because if it is somewhere in your portfolio that you're communicating to the public, you're going to give more time to it. You're going to get more support and more encouragement from your colleagues and from the general public. So I think the academia in general can also help by changing the way it deals with science who communicate.
That's a good approach. Thank you so much, Dr. Islam, for sharing. Dr. Jawad, do you want to add something?
Yes, I mean, in the last slide I showed that we created recently a network of Arab network of science journalism. I think this is a very nice initiative in a way that we need such journalists who have, some scientific background, or at least can understand scientific concept and defend them. So this is very, very demanded because we don't have really many scientists, journalists specialized in science. Maybe we need to encourage the government or the universities to have some masters or some educational degrees in this area. At the same time, encourage some journalists, to understand better some scientific, areas, so they can communicate better and they can face the amount of fake news and fake information that we see in the social network, where people defend things without any science evidence. So I think this kind of initiative, if it is successful, could only help in this responding to your question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, we reached to the end of session 1, and thank you all the speakers, Dr. Islam, Dr. Rana, and Dr. Jawad, for your insightful, awe-inspiring talks and advices and tips that you gave us. And to be honest, you already set the bar really high as scientists, and at the same time, you are science communicators at the same time, which is really great to see such examples and role models for all of us who are doing research, or for all of us who are youth who want to be science communicators, or for the younger generations who want to be scientists or science communicators in the future. Thank you very much for your contribution that you do for the society, for the community, and everything you do in the Arab world, in the MENA area. I can join all the attendees to thank you with a big round of applause here. Thank you very much for everything. Thank you for your time. And I really enjoyed our conversation, and looking forward for more conversation and more for great works that you do. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So everyone, we'll moving forward to have a break for just about a couple of minutes, and we will be back. And behold, everyone, because like we're gonna have a great sign show. It's a family show for everyone who everyone can actually join us and watch the show together. So while I'm preparing the show right now, just a moment, I'm sharing my screen. And let's do it. Sorry for the lots of technical issues here. I'm trying to solve the issue really quick. Sorry about that. I think we are ready now, and let's try one last time.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Fun Lab. Today we will show you what science engaged really means to us. Sorry, I forgot. Disclaimer, some of these experiments have explosions and dangerous materials, so please don't try this at home. Today we have a really cool experiment to show you, and the first thing we'll start with is fire. So what if I told you what the normal color of fire? Some of you may say yellow and some of you may say blue. So what if I told you I managed to make the fire and disclaimer, some of and I put some of the alcohol to the spray bottle. Okay, I think that's good. And then we're gonna put some of our copper sulfate powder into the bottle. Okay, that looks like enough. And then we're gonna mix them up. Okay, so let's do it and shake it, And you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, great. 3, 2, 1. Woo! Shake it, guys! It's a green color! Woo! Woo! So how that happened? That because every salt is made of atoms, and these atoms, when we light it up, and get more excited and produce their unique color of flame. So let's move on to my friend Assam. Assam, where are you at?
Thank you, Dua, for the nice experiment. Hello everyone, this is Assam from the Fun Lab, and I love to go bigger. I love to do the extreme in the experiments. So Dua did this fire thing, but I was thinking of making something more interesting. Why not putting my hand on fire? So we have for this experiment a bowl with some water, dish soap, butane gas, and a lighter. And of course, safety first. First, I will make sure that all my hands are dipped and covered with water. Then, I will put some dish soap in the water. I will stir it very well and make some bubbles using this butane gas. I will take some of those bubbles on my hands and look at that. 3, 2, 1. Ta-da! So this is basically happens because when I did my hands in water, the water acts like a protector or a shield from the fire. So the fire has to evaporate all the water on my hands first, then reach my hands and burn it. So let's go back to Dua and see what she has in her pocket.
Thank you, Assam, for this amazing experiment, and we remind you guys, don't try this at home. Most of you know the classic experiment of the Mentos with the Pepsi. I'm thinking of going to a new level, and instead of doing one reaction, let's do 4 of them with the help of these tubes. As you can see, this tube have 5 channels, and I'm gonna use this channel to put it on the top of the Pepsi Mentos. So as soon as I drop the Mentos, the reaction will go to the rest of the 4 tubes and fill the cups. Let's see what happens. Really nice, I love it. As we can see, what happened is a physical reaction where the Mentos help to release all the carbon dioxide in the Pepsi to be out and make this amazing physical reaction.
So you got the carbon dioxide out of the Pepsi? That is what you have? Let's do something bigger. Let's get the oxygen out of the hydrogen peroxide. So for this experiment, we should have some food coloring, potassium iodide, dish soap, hydrogen peroxide, empty plastic bottle. So safety first. To make our elephant toothpaste, we will put some of the hydrogen peroxide in the plastic bottle. Then we will add a scoop of dish soap. We will put the color to make it a colorful elephant toothpaste. Then we will shake it a little bit. After that, bring it away from the other materials and let's count down. 3, 2, 1. Hydrogen peroxide is basically oxygen that is mixed with water. This oxygen is unstable and needs to be released and go back to the air. Potassium iodide is a catalyst. What does that mean? It means it speeds up the releasing of oxygen. So when the oxygen is coming out, it takes the dish soap with it and makes our amazing elephant toothpaste.
I saw you are doing a really great experiments out there. I'm a bit jealous. Can I join you for the last one?
Okay, let me think. I've no problem.
Yay! Okay, just give me 1 minute and I'm gonna be there. And also, I'm really excited to do the final experiment with you.
Just take your breath and sit down.
No, I'm ready to do it right now with you and my friend. So what it will be?
It will be the biggest cloud on Earth.
What? How on earth?
Using liquid nitrogen.
Oh wow.
Safety measurements are important, so we must put on our goggles and hand gloves. Then very carefully we will hold the liquid nitrogen tank and pour some of the liquid nitrogen into a bucket. After that we will boil some water, then pour it in a plastic bowl. Then we will add an extra thing, which is a scoop of dish soap. Three,
2, 1.
Liquid nitrogen temperature is 196 below zero, which makes it evaporate in the room temperature.
And that's why when we put the boiling hot water to the liquid nitrogen, it makes it from liquid nitrogen to the gas. And this is part of what cloud is all about. Oh, look at that! So when you leave us tonight, just go for it and leash your amazing curiosity to the world. Thank you for staying our show. Bye.
Hello and welcome back to our panel discussion. Hope you enjoyed our show. All thanks to Mohamed Salvati and Dua for this amazing show full of interesting experiments, full of explosions and clouds. So touching the clouds on the ground is really interesting, but let's now move to another cloud. Let's move to the session number 2. And session number 2 is going to be about the role of science engagers, science practitioners in engaging the public. And we're going to start. I'm going to introduce, it's a pleasure to introduce our first speaker today, Mohamed Salvati. He is an Egyptian science journalist, a science communication consultant, and a science journalism and communication trainer. He has 9 years of professional experience as a freelance science journalist, where he published more than 650 scientific pieces in various outlets, including Scientific America, SciDiv, MIT Technology, and more. Mohamed is a founder of the Arab Science Media Hub digital platform and co-founded the Arab Forum of Science, Media, and Communication, aiming to capacity building in science journalism and communication in the Middle East and North Africa region. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Mohamed, and I'm looking forward to hearing your insightful talk about science, the role of science journalism in the Middle East.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for your gentle introduction. It's my honor to be here with you at Falling Walls ENGAGEx Cairo first event, and also among these amazing speakers who have I worked with some of them over the last couple of years. Actually, I'm here today in my capacity as a freelance science journalist, and I will speak about science journalism in the Middle East and North Africa region. So let me share my screen. Okay. So science journalism in the MENA region, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges for this? So first of all, let me tell you about the landscape of science journalism in MENA region. Actually, science journalism was there for a very, very, very long time, with the beginning of having newspaper produced in Arabic in the Middle East area, many of them have started to cover science that maybe happened more than 100 years ago. But despite that, the importance of science journalism was not that much clear. But recently, with the COVID pandemic, media outlets and people are started to be more interested to read and know more about science. That's why we can say that science journalism in the last couple of years in MENA region have witnessed some kind of booming. Despite that, like many of the mainstream media outlets doesn't cover science at all. Maybe they cover it occasionally. They don't have like specific sections that cover science and technology. Most of science journalism in MENA region are, of course, in Arabic, with few exceptions, with some publications that are in English or French. And also, many of them are in print, as newspapers and magazines, and a lot are present in the digital world as websites or even some kind of initiatives on different social media platforms. And some outlets are mixing both together, like the print and the digital. Mainly, science journalism in MENA region are covering health and environment as top topics, with less concentration on applied sciences and natural sciences and even social sciences. Also, recently we started to have a lot of Arabic editions of many of the most reputable science publications. As a Scientific American, we have like 2 versions of Arabic for it, like Lil-Ilm. It's based in Cairo, Egypt, and it's on the website only. And also we have Al-Ilm that is issued by in Kuwait as a printed magazine that it's like being issued quarterly. And also we have like the Arabic edition of other media platforms specialized in science, as SciDev.net, Popular Science, MIT Technology Review, and all of this just happened within the last 10 years, except for the printed version of the Scientific American. So this is like in a nutshell about the landscape of science journalism in MENA region. So what are the challenges that we are facing there? Actually, there are a lot of challenges that faces science journalism in MENA region, as any other part of the world. But I would like to highlight some of them, which I think these are the most challenging obstacles that we need to overcome in order to have better science journalism in MENA region. First of all, about the lack of public interest of science. The public doesn't have enough interest in science so that the media outlets can have interest in science, which lead with the situations that we have. Not that much science is covered through mainstream media because it's mainly concerned about political news, economy, entertainment, sport, and other stuff like this. We need more to raise awareness about science and create this interest among the public about science so that they are more interested, more engaged, and then the media outlets can be more interested in covering science. Or we need to make media outlets understand the importance of having science journalism and science media so that they start to produce more and more scientific content in order to engage more public. So they are very interconnected to each other. Another big problem that science journalism is facing in MENA region is the lack of training in science journalism. There is no any academic degree at undergrad or postgrad level in the MENA region that specialize in science journalism, except for just one program based in Algeria, and it is in French, not even in Arabic. This leads to another problem, that the number of qualified science journalists are not that much because it's not that easy to be a science journalist. I now working in the field for 10 years and my experience was like, I had a scientific background. I studied pharmacy at university level. Then after graduation, I had this interest in science writing and journalism, do this kind of shift and learning by trial and error through getting experience from other colleagues. That was the only way for someone who has interest in science journalism to be a science journalist. And this is like the case for many other science journalists. So lack of training, I mean, at an academic level, and also training programs done about science journalism in MENA region are not that much. They just recently started to be increasing a little bit due to the COVID situation, but still we have a fundamental challenge at that aspect. The other thing is like funding and sustainability, because we have seen many initiatives and many, I would say, trials to establish a media outlet or publications that cover science that lasts for 1 year, a couple of years, then they lack funding and they stop issuing it. We have seen this repeating again and again. And maybe the reason of that, like the media outlets doesn't want to invest more in science coverage, also the private sector. So many of the media outlets in the MENA region are actually being funded through the government. So with change of the government or their visions, this funding can be affected. Very few are depending on like a business model, so they are like gaining profit, but it's still like facing a lot of problems at other kind of journalism facing problems relating to funding and sustainability worldwide. Another challenge is the huge gap between scientists and journalists. The scientific community and media community are almost living in an isolated islands. They are not very well connected to each other. Media professionals find it very difficult to find scientists and experts and communicate them. Maybe we communicate with them, maybe because of the lack of training and resources. And on the other hand, the scientific community is still not doing well enough to reach out media and deal with the media. I mean, we are lucky today that we have a few scientists who are like exceptionally dealing great with media and having a great media presence, even hosted in national TVs and introduced as expert in their scientific disciplines on many of the media coverage of science. But this is like an exceptional example. That's why they are here. But the majority, I would say, no, there is a huge gap between scientists and journalists. And finally, there is almost no research about science journalism. So we don't know a lot about the real situation and what is going on exactly, how we're going to tackle that. So these are in a nutshell like the challenges that I am thinking about that they are facing science journalism in MENA region. Mainly the lack of interest of science from public and the media, the lack of training in science journalism, the funding and sustainability, in addition to the gap between scientists and journalists. So these are the challenges. What about the opportunities? As I have mentioned earlier, like we have a great opportunity now. It's like we need to seize the momentum as science journalists to make science journalism more visible, because there are more interest in science journalism now due to COVID situation. Everybody wants to know information about the disease, the progress, the symptoms, the vaccination, when all of these are going to end and we have our normal life. So this is a great moment that we can invest and should build on in order to promote science journalism in MENA region. From my point of view, I would like to highlight two main points that I think if we manage to have it, it will have a huge impact on the science journalism in our region, that they are like capacity building and networking. We need to focus on this, and I mean by capacity building, like we need to provide more training to science journalists or journalists who are non-specialized but want to specialize in covering science, not even through academic degrees, because this will require more time, but maybe through starting training program specifically in Arabic language, not even English and or French. And we need to use our local and regional knowledge to build the capacities and of the next generation of science journalists in MENA region, not only like bring experts from abroad that they tell us about what we should or should not do, while the whole context is completely different. The other thing is networking, and I mean by networking here is not only networking between the scientists as journalists, as I defined as a gap earlier, but also networking with other stakeholders in science communication, like, for example, policy makers. We need to convince them that we need to invest more into science journalism, with other NGOs who are interested in promoting science, and even networking within the media community itself. Like, we need this kind of cooperation between different journalists and different media professionals, and build up a professional relationship between them that can help science journalism and science media to prosper. I would like to give you 2 examples of 2 projects that I have been working on recently in capacity building and networking in the field of science journalism. The first is المنتدى العربي للإعلام والتواصل العلمي, Arab Forum of Science Media and Communication. It was like the first virtual event of its kind that gather all stakeholders in science communication and science media in the MENA region. It was done in last February for the first time, and I would say it was a success. We have more than 70 speakers, more than 500 attendees over 4 days had attended more than 36 sessions about science media, science journalism, science communication, and it showed us really that finally here in the MENA region that we have reached what I call the critical mass of a change, to make a change to like go to advance the fields of science communication and media in the Middle East. It should be held annually. This is the website. I will share it with you later on the chat box. Another project that is still under construction but should be launched within the next few months is Science Media Hub, Arab Science Media Hub, or ملتقى العلم والإعلام. It's a digital platform that gather researchers and scientists with journalists and media professionals, mainly for networking and building capacities. The idea behind this hub is just providing the scientific community access to a database of researchers and scientists who are expert in different disciplines of science, so that they can go to them when they are trying to cover science. This is very important to establish this relationship between science and researchers and journalists and media professionals. And on the other hand, it provides researchers and scientists the opportunity to communicate their science through media, through contacting science journalists or media professionals who are specialized in covering and reporting sciences. And also, the hub should provide many resources for both communities in order to help them to communicate with each other and to communicate science and write science, cover science in a better way. So that was in a nutshell my introduction about science journalism here in the Middle East. Please feel free to contact me through my contact details. I will share the link with you. Thank you for having me today, and the floor is yours, Mohamed.
Thank you very much, Mohamed. Thank you very much. That was an insightful talk. Thank you for all the things, all the beneficial things that you shared about the science journalism in the MENA area. So as a matter of fact, I've did some research before about the science communication history in Egypt, and science journalism was one of the very first things that started in science communication like context here in Egypt. And so that gives you an idea how important science journalism is for all the people in the Middle East. And I think science journalism witnessed a great bloom nowadays with all of these great opportunities that Mr. Mohamed Salvati shared with us. So that was really good talk, and it gives me the floor to go to our next speaker, who is Dr. Laila Al-Moussawi. Dr. Laila is the program manager for publicizing and dissemination of science technology within the scientific culture doctorate at the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences. She served as a scientific consultant and program manager to the regional organization to protect the marine environment in Kuwait. So without further ado, let me introduce Dr. Laila. Dr. Laila, are you here?
Yes, I am here. Thank you for having me with you today. I'll pick up from where Dr. Salvati stopped, is that there is really very little interest in STEM. And when we started preparing, sorry, I'd like to share when we started preparing for the current strategy, did I share? Yes, I think.
Yes.
I think it's active. When we started thinking about developing a strategy for publicizing science, we also found that there is very little interest in the region, and especially between the younger generation. So the strategy was built around having concentric publication content and activities around these publications and content to raise interest and curiosity among different sectors of the society. So originally, التقدم العلمي or مؤسسة الكويت للتقدم العلمي, Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences, had two main publications. It has Al-Ulum, which is like 30 years old, and they had the التقدم العلمي magazine, and they published different articles from different sources. But it was addressing only people in science. It wasn't really accessible by your general public. So what we did is we started catering for different levels. We added books for children from years like 4 or 5 years old all the way to teenagers. We focus very much on illustrated books because they really attract attention. And on the book side, we also started diversifying the topics we present in popular science type of books. The magazines, we've added a magazine for teenagers, which is كيف تعمل الأشياء, how it works. And we added lately Sky at Night from BBC for astronomical photography. And for businessmen and people in innovation, we added MIT Sloan Management Review because it addresses the application of modern technologies in business and innovation. And then we also added a BBC Focus. It's also caters for the general public reader. Now we have a diversified content. And we started also making these available through different outlets, online, book fairs. We had a very special issue prepared during the COVID, and we were out there at hospitals and clinics distributing the special issue on vaccination that was prepared by leading Arab scientists in Arabic, in original and not in translation, to address the fears and concerns of the public. The التقدم العلمي magazine used to be a magazine that presented articles in science in general. Now we've changed it into a newsletter of what is being funded by KFAS. So we are actually showcasing the scientific landscape in Kuwait within the international framework. And we also added to that short videos, animated videos, like 1.5 minute videos talking about why this research important and catered for the general public. So it's very simple. It doesn't get too technical. And we usually try and represent both male and female researchers, young and prominent, to encourage youth into actually going into science. As a program, we work a lot on shaking stereotypes, especially when it comes to women in STEM, and we hold conferences, sharing stories, telling stories, making this a normal presence of women in science. So it's not an exception, it's the norm, and we hope that will encourage more women in staying in STEM career and providing mentorship by prominent female scientists from the Arab world. On the youth side, we also started working with the Ministry of Education, Kuwait University, Kuwait Institute for Scientific Research, and providing training in all sorts of science communication workshops, like the Chief Science Officer. It's mainly a science communication activity, work with high school students and help train them on soft skills of planning, leadership, and science communication to talk to their communities about science. The other program is the GLOBE. This is an international program where the students in school actually collect data and submit the data for NASA. But what we added to it is the science communication element. So these students are also required to talk about science in their communities. So you see them out in malls or in parks or even on social media talking about science and educating the community. The last thing we added just before COVID was a way of communicating science through photography. And again, we target high schoolers in Kuwait schools. And on top of the science communication skills and the leadership skills, we add photography and nature photography. So they are ambassadors of the nature in Kuwait. It was very successful working with these young kids. We've seen them develop and become really leaders in their schools. Again, we really are keen on gender equity, and we make sure that we have good representation of males and females in these projects. Now, during COVID, we became very active on social media. We went totally online. And we had psychologists talking about the impact of the pandemic. We had doctors talking about the proper procedures and vaccination and debunking myths. We had STEM activities for the families, so we keep them engaged online. We offered stargazing activities in the desert while taking care of social distancing. We tried to keep the public busy with STEM activities and change it from being a dull content into being an overwhelming experience. And then we also had, in the few last years, we had really, really good success with the book fairs being in Kuwait or in Cairo. So we used our expertise in book fairs and we launched an online book fair, which was very successful for the region. Now, how do we measure the success? You can see we have been growing on our social media handles. The followers of our Facebook account is kind of fluctuating around 1 million. We are really spread all over the Arab region. Of course, this doesn't reflect the global picture, but this is the main bulk of our readers. You see them within the Arab region. The followers on Instagram, it's increasing day by day, and the same on Twitter. So this is what we've been trying in the last 5 years, is to make it accessible and to make it an interesting and to raise curiosity of youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Laila, for your insightful talk. That was really interesting, and that is a lot of activities running by your organization. And I'm a big fan of your organization, to be honest, and with the great work that you do in the MENA area. So all thanks to you and your efforts, and that is really great, and keep doing the great work. Thank you for that. We will be back to Dr. Laila later for questions, but it's time now to move to our next speaker. So our next speaker, I think, can we unshare the screen, please, Dr. Laila, so we can move forward. Dr. Laila, can you hear us? Oh, great, thank you very much. So our last speaker today is Miss Lamia Nail, and Miss Lamia Nail, she is one of the pioneers, science communicators in the MENA area. And she is a senior learning design specialist in Sana'a Tech and the co-founder and the head of content in Arab Science Week. She also the co-founder and the school program manager at the Egyptian Science Week, and a national-wide initiative that aims to increasing the public interest in science, technology, and innovation. Ms. Lamia got her master's degree in education at the American University in Cairo on how to develop educational programs for makerspaces and fab labs in effective ways. So we're looking forward to hear what Ms. Lamia is gonna introduce to us today. So I'm gonna leave the floor to Ms. Lamia. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. I will share my screen now. Seeing my screen. So, hello everyone. I'm really glad to be here with all respected speakers and attendees. Today, I'm going to share with you my experience as a practitioner in the field of maker education, especially when it comes to using making and designing for the purpose of STEM engagement. But before diving in, I would like to share with you the story of a little girl called Dalia. She is 13 years old, funny, smart, and she loves science. Dalia woke up at 7:30 a.m. every day for a full week to work with a small team of students to try and solve an unusual problem. Dalia and her team met with Ali, a 22 years old young man who was born with a motor disability in his right arm. As a result, he cannot use that arm effectively for doing daily tasks like tying his shoelace, clipping his nails, or doing things that require two hands at a time. Dalia and the team visited a fabrication laboratory, or a fab lab for short, which is an exciting place where they can find tools and machines that they can use for turning their ideas into prototypes, using technologies like 3D printing and laser cutting. Working at the Fab Lab, the team designed and 3D printed an assistive device that is like a wristwatch that Ali can wear, and he can attach to it a changeable extension that may hold a cup, a phone, or a bag based on his needs. Dalia and the team presented their project in front of their mentors and peers. Dalia was proud of her work and shared the project on her Facebook profile. And because of this experience, Dalia loved engaging in solving real-world problems, and she's considering engineering as a career in the future. This little story is an interesting case from an after-school program named Young Makers for Good, which aims to engage youth in science and technology and engineering in fab labs. In this program, young people are presented with a real-life problem and follow design thinking to achieve a solution. And in the process, they learn new things in science and engineering. Thus, fab labs and makerspaces can provide open and creative space for youth to engage in science and engineering, to learn by doing, to designing, building, and sharing real projects. As kids, we were always curious about the world around us. We were flying kites, making paper kites, building sandcastles on the beach, and breaking our toys apart and exploring how they worked. For most of us, this curiosity gradually disappeared as we grew up, after being subjected to traditional schooling system that is focused mostly on memorizing facts and studying for the sake of passing the exam. Around 2 decades ago, a new social movement took over the world, igniting curiosity back again in kids and adults alike. The Maker movement is a social movement that encourages and celebrates experimentation, discovery, and building things. The slogan of this movement is that we are all makers. You don't need to be a scientist or an engineer to experiment and make things that excites you. And most importantly, share them with people who have the same interest as you. So a valid question that you may ask, what can makers actually make? The short answer is literally anything, from making a smart lamp that lights up when you enter the room, or programming a toy robot that interacts to your touch, to inventing a 3D printed kitchen utensil that can help you make your Greek salad. These projects and more can be built using tools and machines that can be found in makerspaces. A makerspace is a place where makers can have access to equipment that help them turn their wildest ideas into cool projects, starting from using high-tech machines like a 3D printer that build 3D objects layer by layer, to low-tech tools like a hammer, for example. And most importantly, makers at different levels of experience can meet like-minded people who share their knowledge and skills within the community. We can find makerspaces in community centers, libraries, and even in schools. A Fab Lab, on the other hand, is a standardized form of a makerspace, meaning that at any Fab Lab around the world, you can find the same standard set of tools and machines at your service. And there is a huge network of Fab Labs around the globe, all serving under the umbrella of the Fab Foundation. One of the first established Fab Labs in the Middle East and North Africa was Fab Lab Egypt in Cairo, back in 2012, bringing the maker movement to the region. Maker Faire is another defining feature of the maker movement, and it is considered the maker's haven, where people from all backgrounds and age groups showcase amazing projects in a big festivity where science and engineering meet arts and crafts. Maker Faire creators call it the biggest show and tell on earth. To get a glimpse of Maker Faire, let me show you some highlights of the World Maker Faire that was held in 2017 in New York. Sorry, let me stop sharing and share again so you can hear the audio. Okay.
Right. The best thing about being here at the World Maker Faire this weekend is seeing these people from all over the world who are here for the same reason we are, because they felt a need to make a thing and they just did it. And they bring it here and it makes everybody so happy. And to get to be a part of that community is amazing.
Our unofficial motto of Maker Faire is definitely try again, and probably try a couple more times.
So we realize that when you do things that people can participate in and kind of enjoy, that it's a lot of fun for a lot of people.
Okay. So, I'm not sure if you can see my screen, sorry, like that. Okay, back to the presentation. Maker Faire Cairo was also one of the early Maker Fairs in the MENA region that was established back in 2015. Every year Maker Faire Cairo features makers from around the globe. As you walk around the fair, it's conventional to pass by ground launchers that shoots up rockets in the sky, robots in real fights, crazy and fun chemical experiments, and awesome projects made by Egyptian makers. The maker movement is kind of new to the MENA region. This novelty comes with its own opportunities and challenges. Using maker spaces, Fab Labs, and maker fairs to engage more kids and adults in science and engineering can be challenging for many reasons. First, people in their minds usually relate making with high-tech, expensive tools and heavy machines, which is a misconception, as making can involve sophisticated machines like 3D printers to create 3D objects. It also can be as simple as making sculptures by using hands and modeling clay. The maker mindset lies in experimentation and building rather than sophisticated machines and tools. Second, programming and robotics are very popular in making activity. Sometimes making translates in people's minds into only programming and robotics, but in fact, making includes very diverse array of activities that engage people, specifically kids, in learning science, engineering, and even math and arts. Third, parents and teachers sometimes perceive making activities as fun and engaging, but not necessarily educational, which is also not true. It is the makers, educators' responsibility to facilitate learning new science and engineering related concepts and skills, while kids enjoy building and creating with their hands. On the other hand, the rise of the maker movement in the MENA region has its potential perks. First, making can provide an opportunity for parents to engage with their kids in making awesome projects where kids and parents can contribute equally to the projects. Secondly, school maker spaces are on the rise now in the MENA region, which is a positive sign that the maker culture and mindset would slowly find its way into formal science and engineering curriculums. Finally, the spread of maker fairs across the MENA region is very promising. Hopefully, maker fairs are held in every city and country in the region. This is very briefly was my take on the maker movement and how can we use making and design for engaging more people in science and engineering around the MENA region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lamia, for this amazing talk. And I'm a big fan of your work in the tech area and the Maker Faire area. And I've been one of your students before. Actually joined the Sana Tech, one of the diplomas there. And you are doing a great job here. And thank you for that. So I would like to apologize actually for all the attendees for all the technical issues that we faced that made us to run over time. It is 6 p.m. right now, but please, if you can bear with us, if you can stay with us for just 10 more minutes for Q&A for the second session, I would be much appreciated. So we have loads of questions here. So I'm gonna invite all the speakers back again, so including Dr. Salvati, Dr. Layla, and obviously Ms. Lamia. So please join me now for the Q&A session. So, and Dr. Layla, welcome back. Dr. Layla, Dr. Salvati, and Ms. Lamia for the Q&A session. So we have some questions, interesting questions here. So let's start with you, Dr. Salvati. There is a question by Assam. He says, we live in a world where the curve of people who are still interested in reading is going down. So does journalism looking for alternative platforms, especially in science?
I would say, like, when we say journalism, it doesn't mean it have to be written in newspapers only. Like, journalism can be done through different kind of media, like written media, visual media, broadcasted media, and even like radio or even podcasts. And what we can see recently is that there is a shift on the way that science journalists are doing their work. So they may be writing in the website, so it's online, and then write a social media post about it to promote it, so you can have wider audience or get the interest of more youth in scientific topic. Even there are like some science journalism or science writing initiatives that depends just on the social media platform. We have seen people experimenting with different social media platform like Clubhouse. Like no one expected that something like this can be engaging and great in science communication, and also for science journalists to use it as a tool. So I would say, despite the fact that maybe it looks like the reading rates are going down, but it's not only about writing. Journalists are adaptable. This profession stayed for a very, very long time, and it will stay.
Yeah, good to know. that is actually was my concern as well. If we have innovative platforms for science journalism, but it's good to know. Thank you very much for your advice. So my next question would be to Dr. Layla. Dr. Layla, there is an anonymous attendee asked you, could you measure the effect of your printed products on children, especially nowadays kids are getting bored quickly, so they are less interested in reading, and did you do anything for that? that to make kids good readers?
We are now preparing an e-reader, so that will give us a lot of data and metrics. There is a lot of interest, I'll have to say. It's just the way you attract the kids. So what we do is we bring them in with the games and the fun, and we add all sorts of elements to make it engaging. Like, for example, if we are reading something on the solar panel, it's not just the reading, it's actually, there is the reading session, and then they have the coding session where they are coding the spheros, and then the spheros have to run or to travel from Earth to Moon and beyond that to Mars. So these are kids who are bombarded by multimedia. Just, we need to use that to bring them back to reading. Measuring it, I hope by the reader, we'll have more metrics and numbers and analytics. I hope this answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I think that answered perfectly the question. And actually, there is another question here is asking about if you were thinking about making franchises in different countries in the Arab region, will it just be in Kuwait?
No, right now the team is composed of 5. It's very difficult to ask them to franchise. Inshallah, hopefully. We do attend the book fairs, and we have the same activities in the book fairs. So that's kind of franchising, that we are present.
Yeah, I attended one of your events actually.
Cairo and in Sharjah. So inshallah, we hope that we can expand.
Inshallah, that is a promising message right now. So I would like to address my next question for Ms. Lamia here. So there is an anonymous attendee as well. He or she asking, how could we making what you mentioned to be included in the school curriculum, especially it's expensive to create a Fab Lab in governmental schools.
Okay, as I addressed in my short presentation, there is a misconception around making. People perceive making as 3D using 3D printers and laser cutters and high-tech tools, but actually making can be done using very low-tech materials like craft materials, paper, clay. The spirit of making and the mindset of making is more important than the tools and the materials. So we need kids and students at school learn by doing. They should make projects by their hands, which is a very important approach in learning. Project-based learning is very important for learning new concepts in science and engineering. So it's about experimenting and discovering new things through trial and error, making good projects that work and making bad projects that fail. That's how people learn science and engineering, not by using 3D printers and laser cutters. So to answer the question, yes, it is possible to integrate making in curriculums in schools, and you don't have to have like a fab lab or a fancy space that have very expensive equipment to implement and include making in your curriculum.
Yeah, that is great to know. So it's accessible for everyone to do such a thing. You don't have to have the luxurious equipment and all of these things. And actually, I want to ask one last question to all of you, all 3 of you. And it's the same kind of question I asked it in session number 1. And how can we bridge the gap between science communicators, science engagers, science practitioners, and the public audience? What can we do to take it to the next step? So let's start with Dr. Mohamed Salvati. Do you want to add something for that?
Well, I think here, like, networking is a key. Like we have seen in our event in the Arab Forum of Science Media and the Communications that there are a lot of people who are practitioners and researchers in science communication, journalism, engagement are there in the MENA region, but they don't know that much about each other. It was fascinating for me to see how like the field is really diverse, to hear about the experiences and the voices from different parts from MENA regions, that it's not like I would say we have a very strong network inside Egypt, but we don't know that much about what is happening there. And I mean, after that, we start collaboration, just gives the people the opportunity to meet each other, network them, and they will work, they will see a great things that will happen after.
Oh, that is good. That's actually good advice. So Dr. Laila, do you want to add something?
Yeah, well, here in Kuwait, we say you cannot train an old cat. So this is why we start with the youth, with the young children, with the early careers in STEM, because they really think people understand what they are saying. So this is why we really focus on middle schoolers and high schoolers, teaching them science communication, building their soft skills and communicating and planning and being out there in their community. So this is, I think, something we all should be thinking about, is not wait until they are in college level or above. We need to start very early, so you have a very solid base of your pyramid.
Oh, thank you very much. I would truly sign up my son for your activities right now. Starting with, like, once he hit 1 year, I'm going to sign him up. Thank you for that. It is better to start really early. So, Miss Lamia, do you want to add something else?
Yes, I actually second Dr. Laila's feedback. We should start from a really young age. As I said, we are all makers. We are born makers, but the educational system sucks the curiosity out of us, unfortunately. So the education system should nourish and encourage curiosity and making. The problem with the maker movement, as I said, that it's relatively new, so not all people are familiar with the movement and the maker mindset. So it's important to communicate the concept with kids and adults alike. Focusing on kids from a really young age can be really efficient in delivering our message and nurturing the maker mindset.
Oh, that is good advice to end the Q&A session. And I would like, in closing, I would like to thank all the esteemed panelists who joined us today, Dr. Islam, Dr. Rana, Dr. Jawad, and Dr. Salvati, Dr. Laila, and Ms. Lamia. Thank you for being here. And special thanks to the amazing FunLab team who gave us this amazing family science show, Wonders of Science show. And I want to extend my thanks to the amazing Falling Walls Engage team, Nicholas, Melina, and NGF for their ongoing help and support that made all of these possible. Finally, I would like to share some exciting news. The 4th edition of Falling Walls Engage Breakthrough of the Year will return back to Berlin at the physical event. Falling Walls just launched the call for applications for the Falling Walls Breakthrough of the Year 2021 in science engagement. So please, I encourage everyone who has initiative in science communication or science engager to apply, to connect with other inspiring science engagers from all around the world, involving communities in meaningful and impactful ways around the world. I had the honor to be one of the winners of last year Falling Walls representing the FunLab, and I can tell from my experience that is really a very awe-inspiring experience that I had with Falling Walls. So I encourage everyone to apply. I'm going to post the link in the chat of our Zoom right now. And just to give you a picture here right now. So let me share my desktop screen. And this is the call for the application, and I'm going to post the link as well in the chat, so everyone can have a chance if you want to apply. So thank you. That's it for today. Thank you very much for joining us today, and it was an honor to join all of these amazing panelists. And thank you for bearing with us with all the technical issues that we've been faced. And we're looking forward to more events. And please, if you have more questions, please address all your questions to all the speakers directly with their emails that they already shared during their talks. Thank you again, and I hope you a lovely day and a lovely week ahead. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Bye.